This podcast is recorded on stolen and unceded Aboriginal land.
We acknowledge the First Nations and elders of this country and join their calls for justice. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. We're recording. I'm sorry.
We're recording. That's right. This is a podcast. Hey, everyone. Hi.
Hello, Danger Dogs.
Welcome back to Serious Danger Patreon edition. This is a podcast about green politics in Australia. It is not an official Greens Party podcast. It's produced by Michael the Griffin. I'm Emerald Moon. That's Tom Ballard. But you already know all this because you are our lifeblood. You are our rose receivers on Valentine's Day. We're recording this just after Valentine's Day. That's going to be really out of date by the time that you're hearing this.
How was your Valentine's Day?
It was nice. Went to Noosa. Well, Sunshine Coast. What's the one near Noosa? Somewhere near Noosa anyway. No, it's not. It was great.
Hang on, Emerald Moon not knowing Queensland geography? What the fuck's going on here?
Well, when in my holidays, you know the theory that's like, well, it's not a theory, but it's a meme. Australian holidays up the coast or down the coast.
And we went. Two options.
If it's from Brisbane, we were down the coast. We were up the coast. Anyway, not to the Sunshine Coast. It's not my my coast of choice usually, but it's lovely. They've got some nice stuff up there. Did you celebrate?
I did not. I booked in a period away from my partner and realized after the fact, oh shit, that's Valentine's Day. So I was hanging out with my cousin and her adorable son. That was really awesome. But I've seen him since. I've let him know I still love him and that. No,
Can't do that. It's not allowed. It's frowned upon. A real thrill for me personally to know that we're not just screaming into a void and taking on absolutely no new Patreon listeners. I'm glad we sorted that tech issue out because I was like, I moved to the Patreon and then suddenly no one's subscribing. I'm like, fuck. Message received.
No, we didn't have the notifications on. Thank you again to all the Danger Dogs who have signed up. You will be acknowledged on the weekly episode. We love you. Thank you for supporting us and making this show possible.
Okay, good. All right. Look, so on today's show, today's special subscribe episode for you who makes this show possible, we are talking personality politics.
What?
I want to know, how much do voters care about who as opposed to what they are voting for? Mm-hmm. Do the Greens need quote unquote likeable candidates to win? What is a likeable candidate? Should a socialist electoral project that's trying to tap into anti-politics be focusing more on personality or less? All of these questions and more we'll be considering.
Particularly in the wake of the recent leadership change of the Liberal Party as well. A lot of talk about.
True.
Yes. Do the leaders really matter?
To someone far more likeable.
Yes.
That's why they did it.
He's
just bursting with personality. Great move.
This guy has got the likability
multiple personalities
factor.
Even.
Yes.
So
I'd love to know what it was because I do think at one point Susan Lee was polling as like the least liked opposition leader in Australian political history, but I would love to know what Angus Taylor's numbers are and whether he's hitting much higher than that.
Question.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But no, I think the context for this, for me personally, was around the breakthrough wins that the socialist left have been making around the world. The two that come to mind for nerds like us and probably people listening would be Zoran Mamdani in New York City and Zach Polanski, the new leader of the UK Greens. And a lot of people in conversations that I've been having have been like, well, they're just really likable guys. Like, it makes such a big difference that they're so likable. And I was kind of, I wanted to have this conversation about how important we think their personalities are to the gains that those left projects are making.
Can we get to some basics here of what does the Oxford Dictionary define as the personality? What are you thinking of when you're thinking about the personality of a politician?
Well, I think for the purposes of this discussion, I'm thinking about the person as opposed to the policies.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about? Like, what do you think makes up the personality?
Yeah, I mean, their vibe, I suppose. I just think that, yes, we get a lot of sense of the personality of Zach Polanski in interviews and the way he conducts interviews while talking about policies. I would say that somewhat feeds into their
personalities, their disposition to political debates. But perhaps we're talking about, yes, their general vibe, their interests outside of politics. I mean, we know Mamdani obviously massively into music. That's a lot. Polanski has this background as a hypnotist briefly, and he sort of has this, it was a liberal Democrat back in the day too, and sort of like an interesting sort of eccentric dude, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I think part of his personality is just completely owning that as well. And you get that with Mamdani as well. And I think the politicians and personalities that really resonate are people saying, yep, this is me. Here's something. I don't take myself too seriously. I take my politics and the things I'm fighting for and the issues facing people and why I'm doing this job really seriously. But I can have a laugh about myself. Here are my interests. I love these, creative things, or I love a sports team or what have you. And it seems sincere, even if it's a bit weird, and even if it's like way off track, or it's a personality quirk that you wouldn't necessarily associate with one that appeals to middle Australia or your average British person, or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we go into this conversation with an acknowledgement that personality is a very nebulous concept. I think it doesn't exist in a vacuum. We project things onto other people as we understand who they are as a person. As you say, it interacts with their politics. But I'm interested in these questions around, like what kind of character traits make a difference to how people vote, if they do make a difference at all, whether you need a certain kind of person or whether it is more about how do you really let the person themselves shine through and do people respond more to that than just someone who's like, it's not about me necessarily, like I'm just a person representing a movement or a suite of policies and you should support that. That's kind of what I'm interested in.
Great.
I think particularly as, party identification falls, this is a conversation that we've had many times. Fewer people are really tied to voting for a particular party, obviously particularly not tied to voting for a major party. And I wonder if candidate personalities become more important as that party ID falls. And this has kind of come up when we talk about the rise of the independents in Australia as well, or even Pauline Hanson. Like, these are people that it is so much about them, the person, as opposed to just a nebulous suite of policies or even a group that notionally represents a section of society. Not that the major parties really do that in any satisfactory way. But do you think that those two things go hand in hand?
Yeah, I think so. There's certainly a relationship to that. Now, of course, putting out our little Marxist hats, all this would come out of material conditions. And it's not just like suddenly people decided one day to start paying more attention to personalities than other factors. But yes, the cut through of a political figure when almost everything else is so shitty and so hard to understand, or it's really hard to see a huge amount of difference between representatives of the major parties, the two big ones you're supposed to vote for. I guess you start looking around. And when we've been fed so much bullshit and we've encountered so many robotic, soulless, personality-free assholes that have come out of the political machine, it's perhaps not surprising when a Bob Catter comes along, even perhaps a Barnaby Joyce, yes, a Pauline. These are people who, whatever you want to say about them, are eccentric characters who can sometimes go off and produce funny moments. A Donald Trump, perhaps, as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Again, perhaps an illustration of how sick our political system is. But as society collapses, we want the freaks.
Well, it's kind of, I was thinking about this through an anti-political frame. If you accept this idea of anti-politics, that yes, people, declining power and membership of civil society institutions, people are anti-political. And I was like, if people think of politics as a system in the way that, an average person thinks of what a system is the antithesis to a system a human being, like an individual person. And that's why people are seeking that, because they're like, I don't like politics, the fucking the machine, the system. I just want people. And I do think that has something to do with, like I said, Pauline Hanson. I mean, she is a person. It's Pauline Hanson's One Nation, and it's all about her. And what the fuck are her policies? Who knows?
Who cares? I'm going to have to ask you to read out this controversial opinion and put in the show doc for us to discuss.
Well, I think that, is it controversial to say that Pauline Hanson is kind of likable?
It's controversial to me, yes. I mean, obviously she is. I know that she is. That she is. No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I was a bit trepidatious coming to this conversation because I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, people find Kyle Sandilands likable. Like, he's still an incredibly successful and popular broadcaster in this country. And I find him, I want to poke my eyes out when I listen to him. And some people be like, he says some naughty stuff. He's a bit of an asshole, but he's a cheeky chops. And I love tuning in to hear that stuff. And I just can't do it. I don't know what constitutes being likable in this country in mainstream Australian society. I think I'm very happy to hold up my hands here and say, I don't get it. I find Pauline to be, obnoxious, racist. I find it very hard to understand what she means moment to moment. And I guess I can appreciate that people may find her likable. They may relate to her for a whole bunch of different reasons, and they might admire her tenacity. But I just cannot put aside all the other shit. So, yeah.
But I do think, I think it comes down to whether you believe her or not. And I think it comes down to, do you think she has this character trait? Do you think she's being genuine? And because I just look at her and I think she's so fucking disingenuous. Obviously, I don't like her because of that. But if I thought she was telling the truth and legitimately believed and lived the things that she says, not all of them, obviously, but I would be like, wow, yeah.
I mean, I say this, I despite myself and my knowledge about who these men are and their politics, I do have something of a soft spot for Bob Catter and Donald Trump. Like, these are men who have made me laugh. They have absolutely made me laugh.
Absolutely. As a comedian, you have to appreciate.
Yes. That's all I care about. Sometimes deliberately. You're right. It's not just me laughing at them. It's like sometimes they are doing something and I'm like, oh, you know that's funny. And you've followed through there.
Yeah.
And that is fundamentally there is something likable about that. And I don't like that part of my brain, but that is true. So maybe it's just my particular proclivities there.
Well, let's look at some studies. Let's look at some data. So the Australian Election Study, which we love, of course, they do track the most important consideration in people's voting decisions. And they ask about whether people are voting based on policy issues, party leaders, parties as a whole, or local candidates.
Yep. And
I've included this graph, which you can see in front of you, Tom.
Amazing.
And, I mean, to be honest, there are fluctuations over the years. This tracks from 96 until last year, 2025, at each election. And they do change from election to election. But it's not exactly a really clear trend. I do think there is a slight trend that you can see of the importance of local candidates, very slight over time, and a slight fall in the importance of parties as a whole, which would track with kind of what we already know about party identification. But I do think it's interesting that, like, pretty consistently, people above anything else say that they vote based on policy issues.
Yep.
And local candidates are the lowest in their ranking of what's important to them when they go to vote. And I guess, I mean, maybe you could argue people are just saying that because they know that that's the answer that they should have.
Yeah.
Like, they like to think that they're voting on policy issues. Do you think that this is distorted by self-reporting somewhat?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, again, I think the election study is as rigorous as you can get with this stuff. Yes, perhaps, and it's all based on things like self-identification when it comes to class, for example, how people associate that. So we're getting an insight into voters' brains. Whether or not that corresponds with reality is another question. But I guess if you ask this question enough over a long period of time, you do get some indication, at least, of, yes, how people theorize these kind of questions. Just for the record, in 2025, so it's 56% saying they're voting on policy issues, 21% on party leaders, 12% on local candidates, and 11% on parties as a whole.
Sorry. 21% on parties as a whole.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yes, 12% on local candidates and 11% on party leaders.
I see. I'm sorry for that confusion there. Yeah. But yes, and going back to 1996 in this graph that Emerald's put in the show notes, yes, overwhelmingly policy issues. In 1998, more than 60% of voters said that the policies was the number one important consideration in the voting decision for them.
Yeah. And obviously what is really interesting, if you were going to get into the detail of why each of these factors sat where they did in each election. What were people paying attention to in that election? It's worth noting, for example, there's the next graph that I looked at was voting based on the party leaders, and you can see that the Liberals who say that they voted based on party leader was notably quite a bit lower in the last election, where not many people were a fan of Peter Dutton. Mm-hmm. And a lot of Labor voters said, yeah, I voted based on party leaders, because they were thinking I voted for not Peter Dutton. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. I think it kind of brings me to what I was saying when I was like, is it that, I mean, do people vote for a certain kind of personality, or is it just that people want some sort of personality? They care about their politician, their political candidate, showing them that they are a person. Or can you identify the perfect person that everyone will love, and can you teach me how to be them?
Yes.
Because
let's Frankenstein our own perfect personality and put together our favorite traits of all these people and put them together.
Some of us have been trying to do this all our lives, Tom. It's just trying to live in the world.
With my humour and your brains, we could be the perfect candidate. I don't think, and I certainly don't think voters go like, I want to vote for a person who's like X. I think integrity, authenticity really is, my view, this is my theory coming out my butt here, but I really think the authenticity is crucial, because the stories of people who are just so miles away from the kind of demographics that they appeal to, I think tells us something about the way that, yes, people just want to recognize something that is relatively authentic, even if that person is strange. So, Paul Keating liked Marla and collecting watches or whatever, but represents a working class suburb. And again, whatever you think of him, you know what Paul Keating thinks about stuff. And he is a straight shooter. He tells you what he thinks about stuff. He says it forcefully. He says it in a very entertaining way. And he is kind of fully himself as a person, it seems. That's the way he presents. Boris Johnson is in that category, I would say. I despise Boris Johnson, think he did terrible things in the country, but a real novelty and seemed to not pretend that he wasn't a toff. And his buffoonery was kind of a way to soften his edges a little bit and sort of to mask his sort of more horrific positions when it came to policy. I think Trump has a little bit of that too. But it's like, when so many of our political class are so phony and fake, and it's very hard to think what they really think. And they regularly will do interviews in which they dodge the question, where they give you a politician answer, when they lie and bullshit and serve up bullshit phrase and stock response after stock response. Someone who comes along and says something you think, I think they really think that. That's the kind of personality that seems to appeal and cut through, and doesn't seem to break down under greater scrutiny over a longer period of time. Yeah.
Well, there are studies on this. There are these studies from Germany and Australia saying that voters basically want someone who has similar values to them, or the kind of traits that they would like to see in themselves, but with stronger specific traits that are associated with leadership, and honesty and trustworthiness are among them. But there's also leadership, that they're knowledgeable and intelligent, that they're inspiring. Also on the list is that they're arrogant, which I thought was interesting. But I guess people might be like, yeah, that's kind of what I would expect from a politician, and that they're moral. And so there are particular traits that people think that makes a good politician more often, or quite commonly people think that.
Yeah.
which I think is interesting.
Interesting. See, intelligence is an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's like like I think of Malcolm Turnbull, for example.
Yeah.
And it's like he's certainly presented as a very we know he's very well educated and smart in lots of different ways. I think that's probably fair to say. But also very punchable at the same time.
Yes.
And so there's a difference between being highly intelligent and educated, and some people interpreting that as you think you're fucking better than me.
Yeah. But I think that what this study is saying is that people want to elect someone that they think is smarter than themselves. They want someone who is as trustworthy probably as themselves. Like they want someone who, you know, can have a laugh at them like themselves, who has all of those traits. But they would be like, yeah, I want them to not necessarily be as smart as me. I want them to be smarter.
Interesting. Okay. So is the Pauline Hanson or the Jackie Lambie example of are these outliers then from that, or
do you think people don't think that they're smart?
No.
Maybe
I don't think that's not, if you met a Pauline voter or a Jackie voter,
they wouldn't be like, I vote for her because she's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
not
true.
my number one thing.
You're probably right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that this isn't, there would be exceptions to this, but in terms of general trends, these are apparently the sorts of things that people might look for in a political candidate.
Yeah. Angus Taylor is a Rhodes Scholar, by the way, everyone. So.
Oh, right. Okay, well.
As was Tony Abbott.
Things to come. Yeah. But like coming back to that thing of being like people want them to be who they are and a discernible person. And it's like, well, first of all, who the fuck is Anthony Albanese? He doesn't have a personality. I don't think people could be like, in 20 years' time, people aren't going to remember Anthony Albanese as the person who would do X. Whereas they would remember, Bob Hawke, they would remember Paul Keating, they would remember John Howard, they would remember Kevin Rudd. And the other interesting thing in that contest is, did Peter Dutton fall down because, like, I think there is an argument that he performed more strongly when he just owned being evil. Like when he was like, I'm not afraid to make hard decisions, like to maybe do what's not popular, but it's good for the country. I'm a bit of a hardline, former cop, business owner man. Right. Instead of being like, I'm actually a lovely man. Because anyone can look at him and be like, you're not lovely.
Just look at him. Look at his record, perhaps. I mean, they certainly tried. Do you remember the Daily Telegraph headline? He's not a monster.
He's not a monster. Yeah.
And then, during the campaign, he was trying to pull this, people haven't seen a certain side to me. We had the kitchen cabinet, which he's meditating at the back, for example. So they certainly tried to do the softening. I will say that moments with Dutton that humanized him for me, again, still despise him, do think he's evil, absolute piece of shit, no good. But a moment where it's like, oh, I could see how this was working is when he owned it, when he said, like, people make fun of me being bald, I had alopecia, people made these jokes. Oh, well, you laugh it off, whatever. Like, that was like, okay, fair enough. That's
you know who you are, at least.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And who you are is evil. But I think that's it. Yes, people owning who they are, and shrugging off the stuff that doesn't matter, and being able to redirect an interview into like, this is what really matters and this is why I care about it. I think that's what seems to cut through for me anyway.
It is interesting looking at like who in Australian politics has kind of cut through personality wise, like those examples that I mentioned. I don't know if there's anyone else that springs to mind in terms of Australian politics. It's like, apart from, as you say, Katter and Pauline Hanson kind of thing.
Katter, Pauline Hanson, obviously some people think Jacinta Namatjira-Price is a straight shooter and they love her vibe. Very hard to understand that one. Nick Xenophon is someone who had a bit of a wacky personality, I suppose, but garnered obviously a huge amount of respect at the peak of his likability because of his personality. Again, someone who was kind of owning and not being prepared to look silly and just being like, yep, this is me, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And again, Barnaby Joyce, again, people love him. We're told he's the greatest retail politician ever. Well, clearly he's very popular.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And the fighter thing, I think that's another thing that certainly maybe, I don't know if this is identified as a likable trait, but it seems the appeal, and maybe this goes to an anti-political or a popular sentiment, a fighter, right? Someone who's going up against the elites. That's your Pauline, that's your Donald Trump somehow, even though he's a fucking billionaire who was born into a real estate family. Barnaby Joyce, he gets kicked out of Parliament, then he goes back in.
Yeah.
He's always fighting. That's a really big one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's important, I think, to note that it's like when we're talking about personalities that cut through, particularly in Australian politics, it's in the context of politics in Parliament a lot of the time, because Australia does have a marked tendency to pay less attention to politicians' personal lives, basically. Like this is, I was reading, there was this an analysis, this social scientist, James Stanier, it was a while ago, but in kind of the early 2010s, analysed media coverage and found that compared with other democracies, which also have high media saturation like Australia, Australia dedicates far less attention to politicians' personal lives, talks about their homes less, their spouses, the holidays that they go on, their children, far less than in the UK or the US or other countries, which I thought was interesting. And I think it's true, like that rings true to, sure, there will be the occasional puff piece or the human interest story about the spouse or Albanese getting married, or particularly where it might cut across taxpayer interest, like when he's buying a home and a very expensive home. But it is generally understood to be less important or worthy of coverage in Australian politics, I think.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's something we can be thankful for. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like scandals, and they've mainly related to when they are political. So, yes, the Barnaby Joyce's affair did have a political frame. Obviously, the Brittany Higgins incident had political ramifications and took place in a political location. But yeah, people don't sort of lose their jobs for having an affair anymore.
Yeah,
that hasn't happened for a very long time, and
well, it doesn't seem. I don't know that it ever has really been a thing in Australian politics. Like, weren't we talking when we did the Harold Holt episode that it was like widely known that he was a bit of a philanderer, but they're like, but that's not his job. That's totally separate, and they just don't really kind of cover it or really pay attention, which is interesting. I do think that. And I don't know if that's why I said that study was done a little while ago. I don't know if it's changed in the social media age, because politicians obviously do bring in more of their personal lives, I think, on social media than they might have without it. But even so, I still think the more pertinent kind of part of how you're presenting your personality on social media is just as a human who is also doing politics.
Yes.
And I think, with the advent or, the saturation of social media, maybe that element of personality and like brand is even more important now.
Do we even have private lives anymore at this point?
Wow,
or is
so
it
true.
all out there? There was, of course, the glorious time when we were doing Tonightly, in which there was a whole bunch of scandals about the things that politicians were liking on Twitter. And so people might remember Greg Hunt,
hacked,
of course.
Obviously.
They're all hacked. Well, Greg Larson on Tonightly was obsessed with the Greg Hunt story, who had liked a tweet from the user cumpumper69. And claimed to be hacked. And I believe ASIO looked into it, and they said, or the AFP, and they said, you were not hacked. And we just we moved on as a country.
Yeah, right.
Greg was
like
really
we were just like,
outraged
okay. Yeah. No. Everyone's like, that's fine.
I don't think Greg cares. He just wants everyone to know that Greg Hunt did it, chose to like.
Yes, he absolutely liked. He liked the tweet. Yes, they've liked the tweets. They were not hacked. But it's true that I'm kind of like, yep, him and every other fucking straight man in this country. Like, I don't really
and the gay
care
ones.
that much.
Thank you. I'm sure there are a lot of gays looking at
Was Cumpumper
I can't remember now. There was something to do with Chris Pine liking something, which also...
That's right. Christopher Pine liked a gay one, I think.
Yeah.
More power. I knew my gaydar was correct. That's what you're saying.
He's another good one. I think
He's got
Christopher is one of the most
weird personality. He's bizarre. What a strange person.
Yes, but I think, again, that likability of him owning it and being like, I'm Christopher Pine. I'm a little bit silly.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit posh. And I am what I am, and I work hard, and I'm not trying to pretend to be anything other than I am, which is, at this point, a death merchant working in the weapons industry. And he's, once again, evil. He should be ashamed. He shouldn't be able to sleep at night. He should resign in disgrace and hand himself into the authorities. But for whatever reason, people like it.
What about if who you are as a politician is hot, a la David Pocock? Should he be... Okay, this is a whole segment right here. Mm-hmm. Should David Pocock be allowed to post those thirst traps on his Instagram? And I think if you don't know the ones that I mean, you can go and look at his Instagram right now and you know the ones that I mean, where he's shirtless in the water, and he's posted them multiple times now. I don't know if he's using photos from the same event over and over again because they've been so successful, or if this is a regular event that he goes to. Well, I've had debates with people about whether this is genuinely is it inappropriate? Is it tasteless for a member of the federal Senate to be posting photos of himself barely clad on his carrying a rock on his official politician account? Is that appropriate?
Interesting, because he would have been doing that and would have had the same account with his, sports career prior to entering the parliament stuff. Yes, so I think he would have had that and would have been doing that beforehand. It's good he doesn't do it with, this post, Zoe Frankham's family deserves answers. It's good that he doesn't have a photo of himself with his fucking ab out for that. So I think he has some sense of taste.
If you click into the post, which is just the montage of him shirtless in these tiny little shorts, and then he's like, you might have seen reporting about the Murrumbidgee River this week and how bad its health is. An incredible river of cultural, environmental and social importance, blah, blah, blah. He's got information about his work on this in Parliament.
Yeah.
So, it's like, is that fair call if you've got it to lure people in to learn about the Murrumbidgee River? Should you use it? I guess so. I don't know.
I mean, that's another great example of, in terms of personality and interests outside of politics. I mean, again, people, once again, despise political career politicians, and people who come across as if the only thing you've ever wanted to do or be involved with is getting into Parliament. So, the old post-career politician. Sam Gross was a tennis player. Sam Gross, or whatever, was a tennis player. Now he's joining Parliament. Mal Meninga, his incredible political career, But the idea that people do something and then you should run and you should go into Parliament, they quite like that. Yeah, I think they like that because that is a fully rounded personality, right? Like, you're a human being, you're out there, then you get outraged at the state of things, and then you put yourself in there, but you're not a politician. Again, in this anti-political age, people literally running political campaigns saying, I'm not a politician.
But I also think it's because people want to look at the muscles.
Sure.
And I don't think it's just
you
want to look at the muscles, but it's also, it's not just people who are attracted to them. I think that it's young men who want to be them. I don't know if everyone outside of Queensland knows this, but a significant part of Queensland Labor leader Stephen Miles' strategy at some point just before the last state election, I guess since he became leader really, he started really developing this brand of I'm the guy that goes to the gym. I'm the premier who benches this. And he started competing in weightlifting contests, and he posts a lot of gym related content on his social media. And sometimes I wonder, were there a whole lot of young men who did vote Labor in higher numbers? Maybe it was the 50 cent fares. Maybe it's because they were I wish I could be like him. I want to get ripped. Maybe if he was my premier, then I would have the body I've always dreamed of. Oh, God. He's going to subsidise creatine for all of us.
Let's not insult the intelligence of voters that much, perhaps, but I don't know.
Well, let's go back to some data, Tom, because apparently voters obviously they pay attention to how someone looks when they are voting. What is interesting, though, is that the most kind of common or consistent thread that I found when I was reading about this is not just that people are more likely to vote for you if you're good looking or they think you're good looking, but that they use it as a cue for conservativeness. So people associate attractiveness with a conservative identification among politicians, particularly in low information elections. There is this article, this is the summary of the article that I read, a 2012 study, which found that in various countries, including in Australia, politicians on the right are more beautiful than politicians on the left. Ouch. Voters use beauty as a cue for conservatism in low information elections. Politicians on the right then benefit more from beauty. So if you're on the right and you're good looking, you're likely to benefit more from it than if you're on the left and you're good looking. And one of the arguments for this is interesting, is that more attractive people are likely to earn more throughout their lifetime. Right. And when they enter politics, they are therefore more likely to oppose redistribution because they're rich.
Well, that doesn't mean my experience. You know, I've had high and low incomes throughout my whole attractive adult life. So I don't know. I'm not sure about those numbers actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they must be. We'll have to go back to maybe it wasn't peer reviewed adequately and they weren't accounting for the Tom Ballard effect. I don't know.
What are you telling me? The socialists are fuggos? Is that what you're telling me? That all the fucking proletariat little socialists because we can't get fucking laid? We're real butterfaces? Is that what you're telling me right now?
I'm going totally off track now, but as an interesting side note, there was a similar study then about academics as opposed to politicians, which found that, first of all, yes, the political sympathies of scholars can be accurately assessed from photographs. Right-leaning scholars were better groomed, but controlling for grooming, left-leaning scholars were more attractive. Congratulations.
Well done. Controlling for grooming.
Yeah, I guess if you were like, if you just fucking brushed their hair, if you scrub them up, then they're hotter. They're just not putting in the effort.
It's like the American Prom movie, you know, take the glasses off the girl and
exactly.
She's hot as.
Take the glasses off the green. And they're as beautiful as any LNP member, let me tell you.
Who are trying to think of the actually attractive politicians of recent times. I'm not just saying like attractive for a politician and compared to everybody else.
Comment.
Who are they? I guess Andrew Hasey's like traditionally handsome.
I feel like we've also had this conversation before on the show. We've definitely talked about who's the hottest in Parliament.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's not a lot and it's hard to say. Yeah, it's all the Greens. All the Greens are the hottest. Mm-hmm. The thing that I did want to re-emphasise, though, with the study around, you know, voters using beauty as a cue for conservatism and it benefiting conservative politicians more, that is specifically in low information elections. And so that's quite key. It's like... I think it's then the same in other studies, not just about attractiveness, but coming back to personality more broadly, that personality and how you look becomes less important when voters know about the party's platform, its policies, and its record. If they are more informed about the policies, they care less about the person, which intuitively I think seems true, right? It seems to make sense.
When do we going to get a high information election? Is that?
Yeah, do those exist? What is that? That's a good question, isn't it? What's the threshold?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because again, going back to that graph from the top, so 2019, we actually had a peak according to people's own identification. Most important consideration, voting decision, above 60% in 2019 were voting on the policies. Now, I remember that election study in which people say that things like negative gearing and change of franking credits, these were actually popular policies, actually a majority support, at least according to the Australian election study. Now, yes, the geographical distribution of those people who support those policies is one thing, but I also think it's like
that felt like an election in which people were kind of like, I don't know, that Bill Shorten guy, he just seems really shifty and I don't like him. And Scott Morrison was kind of fresh. Obviously he was the worst, but he was at least coming in pretty fresh. And Bill Shorten just seemed a bit dodgy because he was doing things like trying to have two positions on things like Adani and dumping a bunch of old stuff, of old positions. Some had interpreted his approach to the miners. Who are the miners who got trapped? I'm blanking here. The Beaconsfield miners thing, that he was sort of just trying to get a lot of attention out of that. I don't know. That seems, from my memory, that seems like an election in which people were pretty focused on this guy versus that other guy and that Bill Shorten dude. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Even though the policies
I don't know
were
if I would
popular.
agree with that though. Like I do think that the policies were, when you think about the 2019 election, you think about the policies that were on offer, or I do anyway, and whether they were popular or not. Maybe another way to read this study or this data is that, I mean, that includes people who voted for Labor because they supported those policies and perhaps less because they loved the leader or the party as a whole. Like, you have to take that into account. It's because people are taking, like, the importance of the party and the leader fell and the importance of policy went up, and that's on both sides. This isn't stratified by voting intention. So I don't know. Yes, I was interested, and this was something I was thinking about in recent episode with friend of the show, Amy Rumikis, who I think said at some point during the show, you were talking about Pauline Hanson and her close relationship with people like Gina Reinhart, and Amy said people don't hate billionaires. We would love to think that they do, but people don't hate billionaires. And I was sort of thought, I don't know if I agree with that. And is there a similar question? Is that the flip side of it? Like, there's the importance of the people that you're putting forward in an electoral project to be a political candidate, the importance of their personality, but perhaps also the importance of how much do people care about the personalities and the individual identification of the villains. Like, because I tend to think that it does help our little human brains to not just be like, the system is the problem, corporations are the problem. That does resonate with people. But I do think there's a part of people that responds when you can actually go, it's that fucking person. That's the problem. Look at them.
That individual person or that kind of person?
Well, I guess that's a good question. It's like that kind of person, but you can better conceptualize it, I think, when you see what does that kind of person actually look like? What kind of life do they live?
Are they a green? Are they a member of the Greens who went to university and thinks they're better than you and are judging every single decision that you make in your life?
Yeah.
Is it to try to get by?
Yeah, right.
So,
you mean, yes, that's true. The right, certainly, and Advance did pick people who they think are good villains. Like, there's a reason that whatever electorate you are in, like in Queensland, in Brisbane, Advance flyers have Marine on them still. And it's like, no one here is voting for Marine. It would have people that aren't even up for election, and it would have, but it would have Max's face on it because he's a villain in the Ryan electorate. It wouldn't have Libby's face on it, even though she's the candidate that you're actually voting for. So clearly they think that it's effective to pick a human villain, a face of evil, right? Like, rather than just this idea of, a more nebulous idea of the problem. Yeah.
Interesting.
I do think...
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I do think that there's... I guess coming back to Amy's point, there is evidence that Australians kind of are a bit divided in their view of billionaires. But when it comes to the policy approach to billionaires, there's a fairly widely held view that A, they shouldn't be too involved in politics, and B, they should pay more tax. Like, this is polling that Demos AU did early last year before the federal election, I don't remember if we discussed it on the show or if anyone remembers this coming out, but they specifically polled Australians on their view of billionaires. And yes, like it was kind of divided down the middle on things like basically did billionaires work hard for their money or not. But 77% agreed that billionaires have too much influence in politics. 81% agree they should pay more tax. 69%, nice, said that they earn their wealth at the expense of ordinary people.
Nice. See,
Nice,
where is
very
this shit?
nice.
We've read these polls all the time. Where are these people?
Well,
Why
but they're
are these
voting One
views-
Nation. Because One Nation
right,
will, with
true.
a straight fucking face, pretend that they
Yes.
are going after the super wealthy.
Oh,
and so,
man.
And that's the thing that, you know, a One Nation voter, yes, they're more likely to be a rural or regional voter. They're more likely to be an older man. And that is exactly the demographic as well in this polling that is more likely to be skeptical of billionaires, which is like, fuck, why are you voting for One Nation? But it is a good reminder that is an opportunity for the left to say, hey, we're at, like, that you can appeal to the interests of people who currently are going down the One Nation path, but could be going down the path of a left economic populist project like the Greens.
Yeah. Man, One Nation tweeted after the announcement that Susan Lee will be retiring and there'll be a by-election in Farrer. One Nation can win Farrer, but only with your support. The Teals, the Liberals and the major parties will pour millions into this contest. We do not have the big money donors of the elites. We have you. We are
When
a
you
grassroots... We are a grassroots movement powered by everyday Australians. Your donation, your time, your voice, and your boots on the ground are what make the difference. If you want real change in Farrer, now is the time to stand with us. You could copy and paste this. It would be a Greens
and it's
post.
a Greens fucking fundraising email. I know. So this is where it gets really interesting, because then I read the Talbot Mills survey. Also, I think this also came out before the last federal election, but this one was about particular billionaires. And you see this like divide where it's like people actually do just kind of associate different billionaires with different things, right? And so they're like, if you're a conservative voter, or like even more to the point, probably a right-wing voter, you're like, Bill Gates is bad, but Gina Reinhardt is good. Whereas like we might be, you know, more quote unquote progressive voters or centrist voters are like, Bill Gates, okay. This is interesting. And I wonder if this would change in the wake of a certain recent tranche of files and Bill Gates' association with Epstein. But people were like, yeah, Bill Gates, very favourable view, 12%, somewhat favourable, 43%. Only a total of 28% were unfavourable about Bill Gates.
Okay, and so there's more positive perception of Gina Reinhardt. Gina Reinhardt, 33%, negative 31%, unsure 36%.
Yes.
Net positive of 2%. Well done, Gina. Great work.
Okay, well, this is what's interesting / depressing. Men were consistently, when they break down the respondents to this survey, men were consistently more positive than women about all of the billionaires listed, except for Gina Reinhardt, where it flipped. Because she's a slay girl boss and the women like are more supportive of her and the men are like, she's a woman, I don't like her. It's such a I hate that that's even a trend, but that is actually what the data bore out in this survey.
Never underestimate men's ability to hate women.
Yeah.
I mean, Rupert Murdoch, 44% negative, 18% positive. That's pretty good. So net, he's the least positive one in this particular list of negative. I can't believe people hate Mike Cannon Brooks that much. Positive 9%,
Right.
negative 15%, unsure 76%. Okay.
I think that's just because he's got a kind of low net positive score, but it's mostly because people don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Andrew, like Twiggy Forrest, relatively, I imagine maybe more centrist. I don't know who likes him. I do like this. Yeah, it's interesting that
Well, again, a lot of good
Murdoch was
PR,
the
right? He does
least
a lot
popular.
of what presents as good charity work.
Philanthropy,
For
just like Bill Gates,
a lot of philanthropy,
I guess.
yes. Look into Twiggy Forrest's philanthropy and you find it's some pretty disturbing stories, particularly when it comes to Indigenous land rights and really fucking over traditional owners. And look into his family's history and you'll get some even more brutal insights into their particular role in the history of colonization in this country. But, does good green stuff, was going to do green hydrogen or whatever. And Bill Gates has the best PR of all. He does his money goes towards some things that have absolutely saved lives. Sure, not anymore.
Sure.
But yes, that does kind of roll through. Yeah, I mean, I think, while lots of polls will reflect the fact that people think the gap between the rich and the poor are way too big and rich people, should get out of politics, the polling on should billionaires exist or not, I don't think would be close to what we would like it to be. I think that's still a position that is advocated and held by people on the more radical left. It's the correct position, but there you go.
I do think it's true, though, that, and the kind of trends that you would expect, like between genders and ages and wealth and everything, do appear. But in this polling, it's interesting to look at the different responses to questions like, do you think that billionaires, earned their wealth and that kind of thing? And I think there's more of an understanding than you might expect from the political discourse in this country that no, they didn't earn their fucking wealth because no one can earn $1 billion.
Yes. Yeah. God, I remember a panel I did with that Richard Holden dude when I was promoting the book. And he got so worked up at the concept that we might cap how much money anyone could have. He was so animated at the idea that it would be so offensive and illiberal to suggest that we might be able to say to someone, you've got enough money now and all the extra money you have should go to other people. He was like, that was the worst possible outcome. He wants to reduce inequality. He wants a fair society in which we redistribute and share wealth so that people's material needs are met. But you cannot possibly introduce something like saying every $1 above $50 million is taxed at 100%. That would be outrageous.
I do think that it comes back to, and I know there are various kind of ways that this message, people have tried to communicate this message of the unfathomable quantity that is $1 billion.
Yes.
Like I do really appreciate when there's those things that's like, $1 million is a certain number of seconds and $1 billion is hours, days,
centuries.
Weeks. Like, yes,
yeah.
like because that is where I think people go, they think that $1 million and $1 billion are much closer than they are.
Sure.
And when you actually think about how much $1 billion is or multiple billions, it's just, there's no reason that anyone needs that much money. There really isn't.
Coming back on this wealth and sort of previous elections, I think back to when Malcolm Turnbull was Liberal leader against Bill Shorten, right? And I could not, and that was a real light bulb moment for me because people, they tried to do this Mr. Harbourside mansion.
Yeah.
Look at this toff. He's so rich. He's out of touch. Bill Shorten was trying to talk about the big end of town.
Yeah.
And it did not really land because, first of all, it seems lots of Australians are sort of saying, hey, you're wealthy. Good on you. Good luck to you. You've got a good wicket. Fair play to you.
Yeah.
And some other people just didn't believe it coming from Bill Shorten because, as Malcolm Turnbull regularly attacked him for, this is a guy who palled around with some of the richest people in Sydney all the time and Melbourne and, went to a private Catholic school where he did fencing, I believe, in high school and yet has done a lot of work in the union movement. But you actually look at what he's done on paper and the kind of guy he is, it just doesn't quite land, doesn't come across as authentic.
Yes, don't pretend to be something you're not. People don't like it, believe it or not. So how much do you think that the Greens, as this left political project that is trying to counteract some of the populist movements like One Nation and is also trying to tap into anti-political sentiment, how much emphasis should the Greens place on personality, whether it's in pre-selecting candidates and MPs or even the way that the villains are presented? Or should it be just about, movement, policy, systems, that kind of thing?
Gosh, it's such a good question because I don't even know. Like, I'm sure there is data on when you see a Greens ad and they don't actually center the candidate. They have ordinary people speaking to camera saying, we're a movement. This is what we're about. If you think that, like, you know, ordinary people, my instinct, and I would like to think that stuff sets us apart. It's good. It speaks to something bigger and makes people feel like they're part of a bigger something. But I have no idea whether it is how it resonates with ordinary people when they see those kind of ads. I just don't know. Maybe they seem a little bit too much like slick commercial ads. I'm not sure.
Maybe. But I think if we come back to some of those examples that people, you know, that are working at the moment, like Mamdani and Polanski, they will incorporate ordinary people. That's so important to the brand. It's all about, you know, collaborations with people from all walks of life and volunteers and everything. But then the candidate is there too. And maybe that's the point, is that it's like, they're also a person. They're part of this movement of, you know, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of people.
Right. Yeah. So it's Mamdani interviewing someone on the streets of New York. So you get to see Mamdani's personality, but he's also showcasing and showing a genuine interest in what ordinary people have to say about the state of politics. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is, and I think I've argued on this show before, particularly as well when we're talking about the fact that the Greens do not democratically elect the leader of the party, and this debate about what is a leader, how important is a leader, but also in talking about candidates and independents and so on. I've argued that the candidate shouldn't be that important. I don't really care who the candidate is. I don't need them to be brilliant and strategic and all of those things. I need them to do what the party tells them to. Because if the Greens are a grassroots democratic party and that is one of the 4 pillars of the Greens, then it can't just be about the person at the top. In fact, I think they need to be quite deferential. But I am torn, because I do think that people are looking for leadership. And I think there's something natural and quite human about, particularly in politics, looking for someone who's not necessarily above you, but who is able to lead and to bring people together. And that probably is an essential part of what the Greens need to do if they want to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, communication skills are really important, and a basic level of competency, because I really do think in this anti-political environment, people can see one candidate do one stupid thing and be like, well, I'm not voting for them. Like, they really stuffed that up, or they pretended to know what they were talking about when they clearly didn't, rather than just owning that and saying, I don't know about that, I'll get back to you, or something like that. Like, I think, a confidence and a basic level of competency is pretty key to me. It's interesting. I'm just thinking of like recent pre-selections that I've been watching on, and often you'll have candidates and their statement is starting with their life story, and they'll say like, this is me, this is where I come from, this is why I'm doing this is what I believe in. Which I think there's a place for that for sure. But you're right. I mean, emphasis on that stuff, I think,
will read
can
it
be
and
a
be
drawback.
like, it's a turn off. I'll be like, okay, be an independent then.
Right.
You know, that's not in every case, but I do think that then you know, if it is all about you, then why wouldn't you just be an independent? I think when I'm voting in a pre-selection, which I do as a Greens member, love democracy. It's one thing we get to vote on. But I want to know, like, how are you going to mobilize this movement? Why do you care about this movement? Why do you care about the party and the people that make it what it is? I think I'm interested in how are you going to win? Yeah, exactly. But yes, in Chris, I do also think that it's politics. You've got to sell something to voters. And like I said, I think particularly with, you know, media fragmentation and social media, you also need to have a clear brand in order to cut through. And I think you're right that the thing that we keep returning to is it's like, you don't need to be a particular kind of person maybe. And maybe you do for the Greens. Like, I think you probably need to have certain values and attributes to be a Greens candidate. But it's more that you need to be able to be yourself and somehow showcase that to, you know, millions of people without actually meeting them, which is easier said than done, perhaps.
Again, I think you can. I think our ideas of like what makes a good candidate in terms of the superficial identity indicators or class position, I think all that can be blown away if you have a correct approach to that, which is you might be saying, I'm a wealthy person, or I'm very comfortable. I'm not going to pretend to you that I'm materially insecure, like that Liberal candidate who's like, I'm a renter and I have a property in London. You know, like be like, hey, I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm not going to pretend that I'm materially insecure right now. Here's why I believe what I believe, and here's what I fight for. I'm really going to be as upfront as humanly possible, and do that. Someone like maybe Julian Burnside, while made a few political flubs, I think that's certainly true.
Yes.
Did own, or at least in my understanding, never pretended to be anything that he was outside of that, right? And he was running in Kooyong, and that's where he lived, and everyone knew he's very wealthy. He's been a lawyer for a very long time. His credentials are a human rights lawyer. This is me. This is my candidacy here. And I'm not going to try and be a battler, because I think the thing that drives people mental is when you have a Rishi Sunak trying to pretend that he is anything other than a very wealthy man who's been very wealthy for a very long time. There's a clip of him being a young guy. This is the former British Prime Minister. He's sort of saying, oh, yes, I have friends from lots of all sorts of different classes. I'm not working class people, obviously. Like he literally says on the camera. It's like, that's ridiculous. Amazing. Or you've got JD Vance going into that shop and sort of saying, ordering ice cream, and he says something like, "Whatever normal people normally order, I'll have one of those, thank you."
Yeah. Well, and on the flip side, thinking about someone like Jono Surenganathan, who was the former Greens councillor, who is like an absolute hippie leftist freak, like openly identifies as, an anarcho-communist. He's a beat poet. He lives on a boat. All of that, like a very clear, distinctive personality who was able to win voters from pretty affluent areas, people who might have otherwise voted conservatively, because he would be like, yeah, this is who I am. I don't expect you to necessarily like me. You might not want to hang out with someone like me on the weekends. We might not agree on everything, but I'm upfront. You absolutely know that I am who I present myself to be. And I think people did appreciate that from from across the spectrum in many ways. And he did really well. He was a very successful candidate. And he spoke about the fact that I think when he first did his photo shoot for his candidate photo, and they made corflutes of him when he was running initially, and they put him in a suit because they were like, you need to look like a politician. And they only did that one time. And he was like, it was just wrong. It didn't make any sense. And so in his candidate photos, he dresses like he normally dresses in colourful clothing. He's got his scarf on. He looks like himself. He doesn't need to look like someone else. And I think people appreciate that.
Yeah. Interesting though. Do you know this, again, you don't do American politics. Who is this fucking guy? I'm thinking of John Fetterman is his name. Don't have time to go into his whole backstory. Basically emerged as a Democratic candidate. He was a union guy. Everyone got very excited. Oh, wow, he's cutting through in Trump's America. Turns out to be an absolute piece of shit. Insanely pro-Israel, like you wouldn't believe, completely betraying, any kind of principles or dedication to international law or just being a decent person. Anyway, and has had a number of health issues as well, like I think potentially a stroke at some point. Anyway, he goes to the Senate and wears like tracksuit pants and stuff and doesn't dress up. And it's kind of, and I've heard some people, including Chapo Trap House, like some dirtbag leftists sort of saying, I don't know, man, put on a fucking suit when you go, go to the Senate. Dress up, mate.
Yeah, when you're in the Senate, that's interesting. That's bold.
Don't you have to wear a tie? Do you have to wear a tie in Parliament House? You do, okay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what. I don't think that you technically have to wear a tie in Australian Parliament.
Wasn't
I don't know about
Australian.
Max
Max not wearing a tie and people got upset?
But I think they were just having a go at him, right?
Yeah.
No, I think they were having a go at him in federal Parliament. They had a go at Stephen Bates and they had a go at Max Chandler-Mather. If it's the same as Queensland Parliament, though, the rule is you either have to wear a tie or a suit jacket. So if you're wearing a suit jacket, you can wear no tie, technically, is the dress standards. But
great, because we need to look good as we're locking up children. That's very, very important that we don't.
Exactly, it's so important, so important. Well, I think that's probably about all we have time for. But thank
I think
you
you
for
have a
listening.
great personality, Emerald. I don't know if that what you was fishing for
you,
this
Tom.
entire conversation. And
That's right. Well, I was just collecting data so that I know how to make myself more likable. It's all part of a very important project I'm working on. I think you're likable, Tom. I think you are funny and leadership and intelligent and inspiring.
And arrogant?
And
Little
arrogant. Exactly. I think you, the dear Patreon subscriber, are funny, intelligent, beautiful, all of those things. Thank you for supporting the show. If you want to help us even more, tell a friend about the show. That really helps us out. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen if you haven't done that already, and share our clips on social media at Serious Danger AU. If there's something you would like us to cover on a future show, send us an email, hello@seriousdangerpod.com. We would love to hear from you.
And love you to hear your thoughts about what we're talking about here. Maybe we're talking our asses. But yes, whenever people engage with the stuff we're talking about as patrons, we love your insights, particularly people involved with the party all across the country. So email's always hello@seriousdangerpod.com, or of course, if you're a patron, you can message us through Patreon whenever you like.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.